But you have to understand that their rejection of Jocelyn and Elders, that wasn't about economics, wasn't even about the tax rates, though all of that is important, don't get me wrong. Spent a lot of years of my life organizing people at the grassroots, telling them to get angry about excessive taxation and government and wasteful spending and so forth, so I take it very seriously. But I think that what was really more important to people, and you can confirm it by looking at the overall makeup of our Republican freshman class, what was more important to people was that they woke up to the moral crisis of America. They woke up to the fact that since the 1960s we have gradually been eroding or throwing away almost every important value and tradition that we believe in. And they woke up to the fact that finally, somehow or another, those who most believed in the destruction of that great tradition were in control of the levers of power of the national government and determined to pursue their agenda. And I honestly believe it frightened some of them, not so much out of their minds as into action. And this is a good thing. But it's only a good thing if we resolve that we are going to speak to it and act on it. Because if people are looking for a leadership, and when I say the following words, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about a morally perfect leadership. I always caution people against looking for morally perfect leaders. Go back and read Madison. He said if men were angels, government would not be necessary. The premise there is that men are not angels. Human beings are not angels. We are not going to be angels. The only pick you're ever going to have is somebody who is a relative degree of imperfection. So when we talk of moral leadership, we are not talking about perfection. We're just talking about people who are willing enough to distinguish between those issues which go to the heart of our moral identity and which can never be escaped and which must eventually be addressed, and those issues which do not. And when the public mind is finally focused on the issues of moral identity, then the statesman either rises to the occasion or he or she gets left behind. And this is the decision the Republican Party is going to take in the next couple of years. The American people are ready to deal with our moral identity crisis. All the signs are right out there, and 1994 was the best sign of all. It may have taken a couple of decades before we got here. They have let the liberals and all the materialists try everything they could and take trillions of dollars out of their pocket in their massive government projects and experiments in the name of compassion, in the name, by the way, of a moral ideal. But they have finally awakened profoundly to the truth that it did not work, that it was not the right direction, and that in fact it has involved us all in the acceptance of some moral principles that threaten to destroy everything we are. Now at this moment of great opportunity, when one could stand up and begin to have a rational moral discourse with the American people about how what we are becoming relates to what we ought to be in the light of our great founding principles, this is not the time, my friends, to debate them about economic sophistries. It is not. Economics is important, but in the long life of a nation, it is ultimately subordinate to the moral facts. And when you reach a moment when your people are ready to discuss the serious and important moral issues that determine not so much the steps they take as the ground on which they take those steps, then you'd better face up to it. Because otherwise they're going to reject your leadership. Don't fool yourselves. This may seem like a moment of great triumph and victory. So did it seem in late 1990-91, the Persian Gulf War. We were all riding high. Who would have believed? Don't take your victories for granted. That's not what leadership consists in, patting yourself on the back. Let other people do that. Leadership consists in keeping your eye on the future and trying to determine in the midst of that darkness where we really ought to be going. That's what people are looking to us to do. And they are not looking to us to do it because we think we have some powerful light of our own making we can shine out there, but because we have the powerful light of American principles that have shone down to reveal who we are throughout the decades and centuries of this country's existence. Because Jefferson said it better than we will ever be able to say it, and Americans, by and large, still believe that he was right. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In that little 15-second spot, He summarized every principle that lays at the heart of every important institution in these United States. Our Congresses, our legislatures, our elections, our system of representation, our system of laws, everything about us is summarized in those principles. And if you really understand and respect that, then you also know that any issue whatsoever that contradicts and denies and tramples those principles threatens to destroy the foundation of everything that we are as a people. There are some issues you can escape and run away from, but in American history, you never get away from the Declaration issues. They haunt you until you resolve them or until they resolve you. And we have such an issue before us on the table in this country. Don't clap yet, because I'm about to hit you with it and you don't like it. We have such an issue on the table before us today, and you and I both know it. The abortion issue is a declaration issue. It's an issue that goes to the very heart of our principles and how we apply them. It is like the issue of slavery and the issue of civil rights, an issue of whether or not we really acknowledge the transcendent authority on the basis of which we have our rights, or whether we are going to arrogate that authority to ourselves and declare that we have the right to draw the line determining who is human and who is not. If we arrogate this power to ourselves, don't fool yourself. You have dethroned the authority of that creator. You have denied his will, and this regime cannot survive. And I do not say that lightly, but I believe we can see the signs of our self-destruction everywhere, including an Oklahoma City bombing that then leads to all kinds of crazy proposals that we should sacrifice our liberties for the sake of order. But you see, when you are morally disordered, you eventually get into the situation where you must sacrifice your liberties for the sake of order. No free society can survive when it has lost its self-control, its self-discipline, and the foundation of real authority in that society. And the Declaration states for us that foundation. Our freedom comes from God. It must be respected. Out of respect for the authority of God, he drew the line. All we have the right to do is respect it. And when we accept a constitutional doctrine that says, no, wives, mothers, spouses, daughters, they get to draw the line. We get to draw the line. It's not going to work. And we can talk ourselves into it and out of it all we like, but we'll just keep sliding down the slope of family destruction and urban destruction and violence in our heart and soul because we have unleashed a spirit of violence that cannot be put away until we restore respect for the only authority that really cows most human beings, and that is the authority of God. Now, we are either... And I myself think that states the fundamental issue that is going to be before us in the '96 electoral race. It's an issue not of Bill Clinton's moral character, but of the moral character of this people, of whether we intend not only in our public pronouncements, but in our private conscience and choices, to respect the basic principles without which our public institutions of freedom cannot survive. If we grant to one another the right to do what is wrong, then in the end we shall grant to our government the right to take away from us all the rights we have. There really is no halfway point. And I think we are, as Republicans, going to have to face up to the fact that if we don't provide leadership on this question, if we continue to go into the back room, if we continue to fade away when people mention the issue and then declare ourselves to be something other than what we are, it's not going to work. Because that's not leadership. That may be many things. But at the end of the day, the leader is willing to stand up and to articulate before the people those things which relate most profoundly to their moral principles. As a party, we have offered a home to many millions of Americans in the course of the last decade and more because we were willing to do just that. And if now, at this point of seeming victory, we back away from that stance of moral principle, they will back away from us. And you can bet that this party will fall down the same abyss that a lot of Democrats just fell down. I don't want it to go there because I've dedicated my life to this party and its principles. So I'm going to spend some time fighting to keep us on the right track. But if we continue, as elites in the party, to be obtuse about this, I think you've got to realize you give them a choice between the future of America and the future of the Republican Party, and they will take America every time, and I don't blame them. Thank you very much.